Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time. My name is John Vyhlidal, and I am the founder of a company called Unleash Epic. We are a small business ourselves, and we are a small business consultancy. That's what we do. So today, what I want to do is share with you some specific tips on leadership. And for me, it's a passion, and it's something that I think we don't always talk about in a way that makes sense. It's confusing. It's a confusing topic a lot of times. So I'm going to try to demystify it a little bit, give you just a pretty simple overview of what I think about when I think about leadership, and then how you can use that in your business to really maximize profit, to really grow your business. So that's what we're going to talk about. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to run through 4 sections. First, I'm going to give you a really quick background on me. I'm not going to spend a lot of time there because that's not what you're here to listen about. I just want to give you enough to know who you're listening to. Then we're going to talk about what I'm going to call action-based leadership. We'll get into what that means, but that's what I think about when I think about leadership. And then we're going to talk about how to take that action-based leadership and implement it into your business. So that those 2 sections are definitely the meat of the conversation. We'll spend all of our time or most of our time right there. And then we're going to talk next steps for only a couple of minutes, just to make sure that you have something to walk out of here with an action plan. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to keep moving, but please feel free to stop me, ask questions. And if we don't get something addressed now, I'm going to stick around. I'll be at the expo hall. I'll be at the networking session. I'll be at the happy hour. We can all definitely catch up then as well. Scan our badges and continue the conversation for sure. Okay, so let's jump in. Starting with my background. Out of college, I was in the military. I went in as a United States Air Force officer. And I would say the number one thing I learned in the military, as applied to this conversation, besides patriotism and all the things I learned in the military, is that leadership is a skill that can be taught and learned. That was a huge insight for me that I didn't really understand going into the military. I thought it was something that was like character trait people had, but it's not that. It's something that you can teach and learn. That was the biggest learning there. I had a daughter, so decided to get out of the military and went into what's called the Big Four. If you're not familiar with the Big Four, that's like the 4 largest consulting firms in the world. They're just big client service firms. It was super cool, really complex. It put me really quickly in my career in like big conversations with people trying to figure out some stuff that was having a major impact on the business. So it was like a MBA by fire hose, like really getting your hands dirty on these big questions about what businesses need to do to succeed. But the number one thing I learned there was that not everyone in business is aligned like they are in the military, that everyone has their own thing going. Like they have your personal growth plan. Like you have the client has their intention, you have your intention, your boss has their intention. Nobody is really focused the same way they were in the military. It took me off guard and it got me off balance for a little bit. In fact, if you read stuff in literature that veterans write, a lot of times it's disorienting to come out of the military for that very reason. So you can't exactly apply military leadership practices into business because it's not exactly the same world. But the thing I did learn, the people I saw who did it the very best in that world were the people who absolutely obsessed over client delivery. So if I obsess on delivering to my client and that's my North Star, the way like in the military, it's about serving the country, freedom, protecting the Constitution. If like overwhelming desire to deliver high results is the thing I'm focused on, usually I can get people aligned to that. So that's the thing I learned in that time of my life. Then I went into those big companies, like really big companies, definitely names you'd be aware of, but it doesn't really matter. The point is they're big. And the point is that they're so big, they're in like every country practically, like hundreds of countries they're selling. And my job during that time of my career was mostly driving transformation. So I was doing things that was big and complex and over the course of many years. And so what I started to learn there was the complexity of navigating essentially having multiple marketplaces with different consumer preferences, changing literally every week and having to make a plan that would be implemented in the course of 3 years. And so it's like, how do we know what we're supposed to be doing 3 years from now when the consumers in Shanghai are going this direction, the consumers in New York are going that direction? We have to really, in 2 days from now, they might be going in the other direction. Thinking about and building tools for how to manage that complexity was what I spent my time doing there. So it was a lot of really fun stuff. But at the end of the day, I was missing something. And what I was missing was the fulfillment of the purpose of really like feeling like I did a good job helping somebody today. It was a lot of really big questions. They're out there, never really sure. Maybe we sold more shoes, maybe we didn't. I don't know. But what I started to realize was there's so many people who worked in big companies who were like stuck on what leadership meant. They didn't understand the word. They actually thought like they were trying to do it. They read a book, watched the YouTube, saw an Instagram reel, read a quote, asked a mentor, followed what their boss does, and they just couldn't quite get the concept down. It was really tough for them. And so I became just obsessed with trying to figure out how do I take something that is teachable, has great focus on delivering a very specific thing, doing it that's in a way that's simple, it can be taken, removing complexity. That became just my passion. And what I started to find though is the place where it really works the best is in small businesses, because in small businesses, we can take that skill and apply it to a very focused thing and really see immediate or near immediate results in that business. So that became just my absolute obsession. That's the foundation of Unleash Epic. So that's what we do, is help small business owners in that way. So let's talk about that specifically. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. So I called it action-based leadership because I want to make sure that we talk about it in a way that's something that you can remember. But before we do, I want to just do a quick little exercise. It's something a little fun. Okay, we're going on a vacation, everyone. And I know we're in Vegas. Vegas is like vacation destination for many. I didn't put it on here, even though I could have. But let's imagine we're going somewhere else. I want everyone to just pick in your mind, like, we get to go on a vacation, free, all expense paid. You want it in the raffle, whatever. Which one of these ones would you pick? Which one of these ones would you like to go on? Which one would you pick for the group? We're all going to go where you take us. Adventure? Oh, I love it. Hey, everyone, we're going on an adventure. We're going to do a big fun adventure. It's going to be crazy, but it's not here. We have to go somewhere. So we're going to get on a plane, right? So we're going to get on a plane. We're going to fly out of McCarran. We're going to find a place that's going to have amazing adventure. We're all going together. We're there. We're on the airplane. We're at 10,000 feet. We all got free drink coupons. Like, literally, like, it is awesome. Like, we are so happy right now. Everything's just great. But then something happens. The flight attendant comes up to you. Each one of you, just imagine this. They come up to you and they say, hey, like, we noticed that you are the number one passenger who has traveled the most with this airline that's with us today. And you're thinking, wow, that's really cool. That's great customer service. They knew that about me. I'm feeling really good. But then they continue and say, so I don't want to alarm you, but the pilots are incapacitated and you have the most experience on our aircraft. So we need you to fly us home. We need you to land the plane. Okay. Now it's ridiculous. I get it, but just stick with me, right? They take you to the front of the plane, and this is what you've been asked to take this and use it to land the plane. How are you feeling right about now? Now, all of us are on the plane with you. We're going to the adventure. We all care that you're going to get this done. Like, how are you feeling right now? Excited. Nice. Maybe you're a jet pilot. What'd you say? Nauseous. That's a good word. We're just jumping. We're going to go back. We're going to do the adventure now. We're just going to jump and see what happens. Anyone else? What you do not have, I can guarantee, is confidence. You do not believe, unless you just happen to be a jumbo jet pilot, that you're going to be able to look at that crazy mess of stuff and be able to land a plane, right? It's going to be really tough for you to do that. And that's a really good metaphor to bring it back into what we're talking about today, because this cockpit kind of feels like running a business sometimes. And it's like all of these different things that we have to think about, all these different things we have to focus on, and we've got to get done in our business. So a pilot who looks at that cockpit hopefully has confidence and will confidently be able to land the plane for us so we can get onto our adventure in Bali or wherever we're going. But let's give a little clue about this. If I put out a seminar at a pilot convention here in Vegas and I said, hey, we're going to talk about action-based flying today, how many pilots would attend that? None. They'd be like, what are you talking about? It's stupid. It's obvious that flying is an action. Like, I understand that inherently. And that's a little bit of unlock that will help you start to realize what it means to really be a leader. Because if you're going to be a leader, there's an action involved, just the same way there's an action with flying. And the other thing that we're going to really see here when we talk about it is that no pilot stepped into a 787. That's the cockpit we saw, a 787 Dreamliner. They're not going to sit in that. Like, they're not going to go into pilot school and the first day sit down in that cockpit because they know as much as we do. That's not where they start. Where they start is like a Cessna, like a single engine Cessna. Like, you probably see what I'm talking about. So the Dreamliner has an instruction manual. The instruction manual for a Dreamliner is somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 pages. Okay. So it's a lot to figure out. But a Cessna has an instruction manual of about 500 pages. So it's 10 times less complex. Like, we're just going on the instruction manual. It's 10 times less complex to fly a Cessna than it is a Dreamliner. Like, you can look at a Cessna and kind of, you probably figure it out after a couple of days, right? Like, it's not that bad. But what's interesting is that the checklist to fly a Cessna is 4 pages long. Okay. So how long do you think the checklist is to fly a Dreamliner? How many pages is it? 40. That's a good guess. One's amazing. It's 4. It's actually the same. It's 4 pages. It's the exact same check. It's not the same checklist, but it's the same amount of information. So what that tells us is that pilots are able to build their confidence in flying the Dreamliner by flying a Cessna. See, if they work on something small that has the same kind of steps that they do when they get complex, they know that they're going to do a pre-flight checklist. They know they're going to take off the plane. They know they're navigating it somewhere, and they know they got to put it back on the ground safely. Those are the steps. It doesn't matter if it's a Dreamliner or a Cessna. That's the steps they have to take, and the checklist can work them through that. So that's the power of action-based leadership, is we can start to say, okay, so what are the steps? And this is where I became like super obsessed with the concept of thinking, how do I figure out when I'm in this boardroom talking to people about multi-billion dollar, multi-country like transformations, but also having conversations with my sister who owns a jewelry store, like a small 2-person jewelry store, and they have the same issues that they're dealing with: consumer preference, marketplace, marketing. Some of the same issues are showing up. And so it's the same with the leadership. It's not different what they have to focus on. It's just different levels of complexity. So if we can practice leadership, if we can frame it in a way that we can understand it the same way a pilot understands the checklist for a Cessna will translate to the checklist of a Dreamliner, they can start to build confidence. And we can start to build confidence in people as leaders if we do the same thing. So what does that mean? What does it mean to say that we have confidence in something? We're confident that we can do it. So obviously the number one thing is going to be the capability, right? Like a pilot walks into the Dreamliners. I've done a ton of practice on this. I've done the simulator. I've done the Cessna thing. I've got the checklist. I can do it. I know I can. If you are a business owner and you are a plumber, you probably have a lot of confidence in your technical ability around fixing pipes. Or if you make cupcakes, you know how to bake stuff. You're really good at that thing. You have a lot of confidence there. The capability is there. But then there's clarity. Clarity means that you are clear about what you want to do, how you got to do it, and why you're doing it. So that what, how, and why of what you're doing builds the confidence into the formula. So not only does the pilot they know how to get in the plane, but they know it's going to Bali or Hawaii or Vegas or LA, wherever. They know what they're doing. They have a clear intention in their plan. And that's the exact same thing with leadership. You have to know what it is you're doing. So that's when we start to demystify it a little bit, because we're not talking about just every day, I'm just always the leader because I own the business. Because there's a very specific thing I need to do, and I can take specific steps to do that thing. And when I do that, I will then be able to lead myself and others and my business forward. So like we start to think about leadership that way, it's less about sitting in the cockpit with a cool hat that we pulled you and like you're a pilot because you're in the cockpit. It's not like that. It's more like a person who has the capability and clarity of flying a plane and how, and why to get the plane to the destination is the pilot. And they could be sitting at home. They're not necessarily always a pilot. Sometimes they're just hanging out, but they're still considered a pilot. That's exactly what leadership is like. So when we want to do this for leadership, we have to define what we're talking about. Okay. I'm Gen X, by the way. And in Gen X, we would use a dictionary. That's how we define things. We'd have to pull it out, look at it. So I did it for you. And we don't actually have physical dictionaries anymore. Or maybe you do. I don't. So I did all the thing, typed it in. Here's the definition out of Merriam-Webster, the preeminent dictionary. It's super unhelpful. Just so you can see. It's the office of a leader, capacity to lead, active leading, leaders. I don't even know what that means. And so this is the kind of stuff that we're living in. That's how we talk about it. But then we can click in and we can try to figure out other stuff, servant leadership maybe. If you go to Google, if you try to go the other way, let's Google it. You're going to get over 12 million results on what a leader is or how to be a leader or how to be a better leader. That's the same problem as the Cessna in the 787. You're like looking at all this stuff. I don't even know what to do. Which button do I push? What thing do I try to implement when I'm trying to make my business better? So this isn't very helpful. So what I'm going to do is give you what I call my definition of leadership. This is how I think of leadership. This is what I've built sort of the business of Unleash Epic around. And it's the process of building meaningful connections around a great idea and a clear plan, then putting in the hard work to make sure that everyone has what they need to help achieve the idea. Okay. So that's the definition of leadership that I want you to hang on to at least for the next 15 minutes. You can forget it after that if you want, but I think it's really helpful. So how does this resonate to people? Can people give me like a thumbs up or if this makes sense to you? When you think about the definition of leadership, does this resonate a little bit? People feel like, yeah, this feels like leadership. So what's really cool about it then is the words in red give you some very clear direction on what you can specifically do. We think about the steps of a checklist of an airplane. It's the same thing. We have 4 steps here. We have to build a great idea, build a clear plan, put in some hard work, and then have meaningful connections around the whole thing, right? Like, that's the steps. Now, this whole thing would take hours to go into, so I don't have time to do that today, but I will just walk you through really quickly because we got to get into the part about your business. So the great idea, what that really means is that you saw an opportunity somewhere. Something needs to be better. There's a problem. There's a way to do things better. And you've come up with an idea. You worked that idea to be the very best possible idea it could be. And now you have a great idea. The way to solve the problem, the very best way. So we'll leave it there for now. We'll talk more later. And then you have to have a clear plan, means that not so much a project plan, like project manager stuff. What we're saying is you've taken the time to think about the opportunity and your great idea. And you said, what do I have and what don't I have to make this happen? You scanned your environment and you've taken some time to think, okay, if I were to implement my great idea, these are the things I would need to create or have or do or be or build. And so that's the idea of a clear plan. So you've taken this time and you've built these clear plans and this great idea. So now you have to have connections. And this is where the magic starts to happen for leadership, because connections aren't all the same. They're not just your employees. If you think about the idea, if you have a great idea to solve an opportunity in your business, there's people who have to agree with you that it's a great idea. That's maybe your co-founders or your investors or your business partner or your boss if you have one. That's a different kind of a person than who's someone just going to give you advice about the idea, like a consultant or a mentor. So there's different kinds of people. You got to think about how are you going to engage them. Same with your plan. There's people who can help you. If you're the pilot, there's a person in the air traffic control tower who has their own thing going on, but they're very helpful to you in the fact that you got to get your plane on the ground, but they're not necessarily part of your plan. So you got to think about them and how they impact your plan. But there's also people who come along the ride with you, who are actually, you are asking to help. You're inviting them into your idea. And the way that you work with them is a little bit different. So we're starting to think about the people, how they're engaging in our plan and how we can help them. And then of course, the last people are the people we're impacting with everything that we're talking about. So when we start to see that we can categorize the people that we're working with, we can really start to unfold concepts like servant leadership or all the other books and YouTubes and everything else you can see about leadership, because we're starting to see how and why people want to work with us and what we need to do. Because the last step, and this is the step that's the most important, of course, is putting in the hard work to make sure all of those people have what they need to help get the job done, to make sure that you're able to implement your idea and ultimately solve the opportunity. So that's what we're working toward. And now as a business owner, this slide's probably like step 1 through 4, right? Like it's just hard work all the time. That's what we're doing constantly. We're grinding. And it makes sense because this is where all of the business literature focuses on. We talk about leaders eat last, leaders eat first, or whatever. It's always talking around this concept. But if we go back to the idea of confidence, the piece that really gives us the confidence in our leadership was what we had already worked on, because now we have the clarity on what we're trying to accomplish. Because when we get to this place and we start to see people telling us, hey, why don't we try this other way? Or, hey, this thing's a little bit better. This thing's a little better. You have clarity on what, why, and how you're trying to get the job done. And spending that time up front is what separates people who are often referred to as natural born leaders from the rest of us, because they've actually taken some time to think through those pieces. And they show that confidence in their plan and their vision because they've done the work to do it. Now, just like the Cessna and the Dreamliner, this could be like a simple thought exercise. You just think through, okay, like we need to start a little league for my kids' team and whatever. It's like simple. You think through it and you make your idea and your plan. Or it could be a multi-year big effort, like the transformations I was talking about earlier. The big ideas and the plans aren't that simple. They take a lot of work. They're more complex. Ultimately, it's the same thing that you're doing. So that unlock is what can really help propel you to practice leadership in a way that builds on itself so you can really start to eventually fly the big plane. So when we put all of that together, there's just a couple things we need to demystify in the last 10 minutes, because we got to get to your business. Because leadership is about driving change. It's not about the status quo. So the status quo is management, and that's super important in your business. You've got to be able to predictably and repeatably do things in your business. That's how your customers expect to get your products and services. But that's not leadership. Leadership is about doing something different, making a change, seeing an opportunity and solving it. It's also a skill you can learn. That's a big unlock. And maybe that seems obvious to people, but for me, it wasn't. It's for a very long time. But it is a set of actions. Like if you think about our definition, there's a very specific set of actions. It's not a trait and it's not a role or title. Again, think about the role or title, like the person when you had to just get pulled into the pilot seat and you got sat down, like You had no business being in that seat, but you're there. So that happens to a lot of people a lot of times when they think of themselves as a leader. I got the hat, I got the little wings, I'm the leader. That's not how it works. It works if you're doing those action-based steps, then simply you are being a leader. It's just that simple. So from here on out, I'm not going to refer to it as action-based leadership or try to differentiate. I'm just going to talk about leadership, and that's what I mean. So let's jump into that. And one last thing. This is like a lot of stuff. This is 25 specific things. This is like the one-page checklist. So you can take a picture, or you can just go here, onlyshepic.com/action-based leadership ABL -checklist, and you can get that copy. So that's like a full leadership masterclass, to be honest with you, because there's 25 different things about how do you create a great idea? How do you get a clear plan? What does the hard work have to do? What are the meaningful connections for each of these pieces? So when you go through that checklist, it's repeatable every single time. Every single time you get the plane off the ground and put it back down, these are the steps you're going to take. Okay. So remember this, because this then becomes the basis by which we're going to drive improvements into your business. Because we're going to now talk about how to implement this in your business. So let's talk about it. So remember our definition. Now, this definition would melt the brains of a lot of people when I talk to them in corporate world. But I found a specific group of people would always kind of be like, yeah, I get it. Like that makes sense. You know who they were? They're you guys. They're all of you. They're business owners. Business owners look at this and go, yeah, that sounds right. And you know why? It's because leadership, if it's done well, is the exact same thing as entrepreneurship. To ultimately make a great company, you had to identify some problem in your market, some opportunity that you could create a business and solve that. You had to do all the work to build a plan and a heck of a lot of work to get that business off the ground. So you've already demonstrated the steps of leadership just by building a business, if that's what you've done. But what you don't have as a business owner is what exactly to spend your time doing. Like just walking through the expo hall, which is super cool, by the way. I've got like a checklist of 25 things I've got to work on for my business. I've got to set up a trust and get like a new AI tool, and I've got to like get hiring software. Like it's like blowing my mind. So it's, oh my gosh, what do I do? But so that's now I have all these little things that I can put into my business. And if I follow the action-based leadership checklist, I can specifically put that thing into the business and I can work through that process to do it. But let's talk about it, because to really think about in the last 10 minutes or so, 5 minutes or so, we're going to talk about what does it actually mean to improve your business using action-based leadership. So like I did with leadership, I'm not going to get as far down the line, but let's just talk about what a business is ultimately. Ultimately, a business is a systematic and economically self-contained way to solve a problem for society. You're doing something that improves the life of somebody else or makes something product cheaper, whatever that is. Like there has to be a reason someone wants what you do, right? A product or service. It has to be systematic. Systematic just means that it's repeatable and predictable. You can predictably and repeatably do something and deliver that value to clients. And economically self-contained just means that you're not asking for donations, you're not asking for taxpayer money. You found a way to do this really cool thing for society by just running in your own little engine. And that's what a business is. So if we think about a business like that, then what we have is this, as simple as it could be, the simplest business structure we have just has two simple processes. You have a product or service and a way to make it, and you have a customer, someone who wants to exchange value with you to get that product or service. Like that is the simplest way to think about a business. So those are two foundational systems that you have to have a business. And if you have that, you can potentially say you have a business and you're a business owner. But as we all know, there's a lot more to the story, because as soon as that person gives you the money for that thing that you just sold them, now you have to have a process to handle the tax or whatever's going on in the next room. You have to have a way to think about how you're going to make sure that money is profitable and that you have a revenue. But your investors are curious because it's like, what's your P&L? All of these things with just finance. Then you have to think about like supply chain and logistics. And you have to think about marketing and sales, because you got to have more customers coming in. So you start to have all of these things in your business. The huge unlock, if we just stick with the idea of a framework and say, okay, this then is the foundational systems that really any business should have. Now, this doesn't have to be your business exactly. This is when I talk about business, my business, this is how I've structured it. You have a product or service, you have a customer, the things we've already talked about. Next thing, of course, you got to deal with the money. The next thing is strategy and operations. Strategy and operations is the part of your business that's coming up with the great ideas and making sure that they're getting implemented. It's looking across your business and looking at how do I drive improvements. This is really you as the business owner, usually sitting in this seat, thinking about how do you drive and show direction to your business. Then you, of course, have marketing, sales, and a team. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly this. Your business might say marketing, sales is one thing for us because it's one simple process. Maybe you have 6. Maybe your supply chain is very complex, so you have 7 because you're going to put supply chain outside a product. Like I'm not saying this has to be exactly yours. What I'm saying is you have to have this. Because if you have this or something like this, you can say, these are the foundational systems of my business. Now I can start to say, okay, these are the foundational systems. And I need to drive specific improvements to these foundational systems that will either reduce my costs or increase my revenue. And that's how you start to drive profitability. Those are the only 2 ways you can do it. And so by working through this, you can systematically find the ways to improve your business. So last thing, because we're almost at time, is I want to talk about the first part of the definition. This is what a business is. It's a contribution to society. And that feels so good. Wow, look at all of us, like just doing good stuff. But there's another part, right? There's another reason we all went into business. So when I talk to business owners, myself personally as a business owner, this is the other half of the coin. Personal freedom. I want to have the freedom to spend the time and money the way that I want to. I don't want to have to work for my business forever. I don't want to have to just be self-employed. I want to actually be able to think about my business running as an investment for me that's helping me experience the freedom that I've desired. And so what that does is it gives us a pretty clear path that every business wants to follow. And so that path then goes like this. It goes, we're in this what you could call pre-revenue phase. Like we're just coming up with ideas. We're trying to get investors. We're doing a business plan. We're doing whatever it might be. But then we get into this chaos phase. And this is like the scary valley of debt, basically. Where like you're selling stuff and your revenue's coming in, but profitability does not exceed revenue. And you're just in chaos. You're just finding ways to dump cash onto things, figure out like how much money can I give Google this month to run my ad? I can't wait to give them another $1,000. That's what you're doing here. Just chaos, but you're figuring it out. And then you start to get to this place that's controlled. You have foundational systems in place. You're able to predictably project, if I spend this much in ad revenue, this is what it's going to do for my overall revenue. You can start to see control. And then you work your way through growth, which is like the scaling phase. You've built a solid foundation. You're growing to eventually get to that place where your business is giving you the freedom that you desire to spend your time and money. So if we take those 2 things, what we realize is that these aren't like independent sort of things. Sometimes we'll find businesses that are here, but they haven't done a lot of work here. So they got like a loose foundation, if you will. Like they're sitting and doing controlled things because they've had a really great hot idea, but they don't really have a really strong business plan. They don't really have a real strong like P&L. So like there's pieces that build so you can get to that freedom and stay there sustainably. Last thing, if we think about the foundational systems you need, we think about path you are on that trajectory. Then we think about what are your biggest pain points. You're going to have pain points as a business owner. Your pain points are going to be your time, personal time, your team, and how effective they are or are not helping you do your work, and money, having enough money to really just feel like you're independent. So there's all of these things. So just take a picture of this. This is like 25 different things that you as a business owner can practice action-based leadership on based on these pain points and where you are in this journey. So you can start to say, hey, I build my foundational systems. I've figured out where I am because I'm in the chaos phase or I'm in the control phase, and I am sucking at my time. You can think about, how do I implement a time management system for myself, for my team? How do I implement an operations and training program? And every single one of these then is an opportunity for you to practice action-based leadership, because you can say, not only is building the business a opportunity to practice action-based leadership, implementing a change into your business that's extremely focused, because it's about a specific foundational system, you're improving it. You know, it's about working to build a business that's working toward freedom. It's about alleviating one of your biggest pain points. Then you just work toward getting that in place. And there's a million resources, of course, for that, to do that. But what you're going to say in one last minute here is, that's really hard. Can someone just do that for me? So there's this amazing book. If you haven't read it and you're a business owner, you have to get this book. You have to. It's a great book. But what he says in it, he says a ton of really like incredibly smart things. But one thing he says is the system isn't something that you just plug into a business. Being a business owner, being that action-based leader, you have to actually derive that process into your business. You have to, Joe's plumbing and Tom's plumbing, they're both on the same block. Their CRM systems aren't going to be the exact same. They're different. There's reasons why they're different. Their visions are different. They want different things. And so you can't just take it and plug it. And I know we all probably sell stuff to say we can plug stuff in. I get it, but you really ultimately have to think about how it's going into your business. That's the difference of an action-based leader who's a business owner, is you're thinking, how do I do that? How do I actually get that thing into my business? And so you're going to get into this place where, back to the confidence, you're going to be down here. You just are. Because I got to build a CRM system. I got to figure out an SEO solution. I got to figure out a team building solution. I got to figure out how to hire and retain talent. So, but over time, as you practice it, it's going to go up. And then over time, that anxiety starts to come down and you feel like you can actually land the plane. And you're going to get into this place. It's called the aha zone. Like right here, you're going to say, okay, okay, I can do this. I can actually do this. I start to see myself having the confidence because I have the clarity of what I'm trying to do and the capability to do it. Once you get there, you're not an expert. You're not as far as the rest of, you're not an expert in the SEO solution or whatever it might be, but you're enough that you like have more confidence than anxiety. That, my friends, is what I want to share with you. I want to jump ahead because we don't have any more time and we ran out, but I do want to say this. If you want to continue, just hit coffeewithjv.com. That will be a way for us to just it goes like a booking calendar. We can talk about you and your business, like completely complimentary. I'm not trying to sell. I'm just saying, hey, let's talk. Like, where is your business today on the journey? What foundational systems are you missing? What are those things could you actually implement? And let's like actually offer, like, here's one or two things that you probably should focus on. So I'm happy to do that. If you just book time with me through coffeewithjv.com. And ultimately, what I want you to remember is just one thing at a time. That's, if you remember one thing out of this, is just do one thing at a time. And if you do that, systematically practice your action-based leadership, I promise you, you can unlock that profitability that you're so desiring and work your way to the freedom that you desire. Thank you.